Welcome to Still Untitled, the Adam Savage Project. I'm Will.
I'm Adam.
And I'm Norm.
I don't have anything random to talk about today.
No.
There's a big metal, there's a metal frame up here out of camera. I don't know what that is.
Well, so that was built for a pilot Jamie and I were working on for Discovery.
Is it for like a head rack?
Yeah, well, it is a aluminum frame that straps around your chest and a cage that goes around your head to protect your head.
Oh.
So that another head would go on top. It was for this sword fight I wanted to have with Jamie where we could be like Rock'em Sock'em robots and knock each other's heads off.
Oh, that sounds fun.
Yeah, it does. It didn't quite work out the way we'd planned, and I ended up abandoning that run. But it's a head cage that fits me exactly, so I figured I can't let it go to waste.
No. What if you need another head cage?
Exactly. I had the pleasure of showing my children The Professional last night.
That's a phenomenal
Luc
film.
Besson's.
I've started keeping a list on one of my stickies of things they haven't seen. They haven't seen The Sixth Sense yet, and they don't know anything.
No, impossible.
I
There's
know.
the internet.
Think about it.
It's like it's about a kid who sees dead people, right? And that's all he knows.
Yeah.
Your kids are pretty clever. they could be just feeding you what you want to hear.
John Landis has a story about seeing The Sixth Sense in the movies. He was loving it.
Mm-hmm.
He's totally loving it. But his wife, Deborah, is a costumer.
Oh, yeah.
And
Hold on.
so
By the way,
she's
spoiler alert.
Spoiler alert on The Sixth Sense. And by the way, that chick in the crying game is a man.
Yeah. Bruce Willis is a superhero. That's my favorite segment.
So Deborah, John's wife, was watching Sixth Sense with him, and she turns to John and says, "Why is Bruce Willis wearing the same clothes?"
Ghosts don't change
And,
clothes.
and John goes, "Ah!"
Halfway through the movie?
costumer totally saw through the ruse. But the boys had not seen Leon the Professional, and I was just like, "That is one of those. You can't not love that movie." I really submit.
It is everybody should watch that movie.
And you told us you showed them the director's cut.
I showed them the director's cut, which is also, I guess, usually often referred to the European cut, because it's got a bunch of extra scenes with Natalie Portman and Jean Reno that are, they don't have sex or anything. She's 12, and their relationship stays totally moral and reasonable.
Yeah,
but
even for France.
But they converse on subjects that American audiences apparently tested and found really unpleasant, and creepy.
Yeah,
and it's very intense. My God, it's a great movie. I hadn't seen it in about 5 years.
How far Jean Reno has kind of fallen into the... he was great there.
Yeah.
But now he's just like done... He's the French cop dude.
Is he?
Yeah.
I haven't seen him in something since
he was in
freaking
Taken,
Mission
wasn't he?
Impossible.
I don't know if... No, I don't think it was in Taken, but he plays like, they're going to go to France and they need an inspector.
Was he in
Jean
Catch
Reno.
Me If You Can?
Oh, was he?
No. He wasn't in that. He also...
These are the two French cop roles I got in my head. It's Taken and Catch Me If You Can.
The gendarme.
So I don't know if your analogy holds, Norm.
He was in Godzilla.
Didn't see Godzilla.
I didn't see Godzilla. I remember him being in Mission Impossible. Doesn't he die in the opening scene of Mission Impossible? The first one?
Maybe he might be he's the other team, right?
I think he's the other team. At any rate, he is
He's great.
unbelievable genius in this movie. If you like Jean Reno in that and Femme Nikita also, you should check out The Big Blue, which is one of Luc Besson's early
That's
films.
the freediving movie, right?
That's the freediving movie
amazing.
with Roseanne Arquette.
Yes.
And
it's so good.
It's got some weird slapstick going on in it.
Oh, it's super weird in French.
But it's an amazing
really
film.
Yeah.
It's really, really beautiful.
That's so when I grew up, we had a satellite dish, like the old kind with the hand crank on the back, the big 8-footer.
Right.
So we were in the country and we were poor, so it worked out. But we would get channels, and you couldn't always get the audio on the channel. Sometimes they would show the picture and scramble the audio.
Yeah.
Clearly not understanding what somebody with basically infinite free time and low standards. So The Big Blue was one of the films that was on during that time, and I watched it with no sound, and it actually completely works.
I think totally.
Completely works.
That'd be
That's the mark of a good
interesting
movie.
Yeah.
That if you could watch it and understand the plot and the motivations without hearing any of the dialogue.
I once was having drinks at the Lone Palm, and they were playing Cool Hand Luke.
Oh no, that is a good movie
Without
to watch with no
sound,
Yeah.
Cool Hand Luke is an unbelievable shadow play. Every shot frame tells every story that you need to know about what's going on between the characters.
So you'd already seen it, right?
Oh, yeah.
Okay,
Yeah,
so
yeah.
you were familiar. Yeah,
Totally familiar with it, but you don't need to be familiar with it to watch it without sound. I mean, even down to like characters are higher than the other characters in frame,
Yeah.
and the shot angles all tell.
It's a fun airplane game to play also. in those old airplanes.
Well, watching the movie without the headphones
Yeah.
on. Yeah, it's great.
It's great. It's really cool.
You're giving us a lot of openings for the topic here, and to framing and movies with a young with a age difference and
Yes,
relationships.
yes.
There's a lot of potential segues.
I just want to say I'm going to ruin the segue by saying that I watched Sex Lies and Videotape the same way, expecting something completely different with no sound.
Oh, wow.
That movie is not very good without sound. And also, as a 12-year-old, a little bit disappointed.
As a 12-year-old, yeah. I remember I saw it when it came out. I'm a little older than you, and so I was like, I guess 18.
That seems about right.
And I loved that movie. I actually was just quoting it the other day because there's this bit towards the end where Andy McDowell gets mad at James Spader for his weird habit.
Yeah,
And
she's right.
she says, "You're an effing nut job." And he says, "Really? Because I look around at you and your husband and your sister, and frankly, I feel relatively normal." It's a good one. So I also realized they haven't seen La Femme Nikita,
Oh, the French.
which they should totally see. And that becomes my segue into showing them Point of No Return.
You know,
Wait, and letting them see American remakes of classic films, good and bad.
yeah.
Seven Samurai, The Magnificent Seven, Sanjuro,
Hidden Fortress,
Yojimbo. They
Star
haven't
Wars.
seen any of the Fistful
wow.
of
So
Dollars.
I can imagine if
Hidden
you
Fortress they have seen and
Right.
they love.
Oh, it's great.
if you show someone Hidden Fortress before Star Wars or all those, all the Japanese
Yeah.
movies before you have like the American interpretations,
Yeah.
and how that would mold someone, I guess to make them kind of a movie snob.
So John told me a funny story. John Landis, we have the Landis week because we interviewed him on
Yes.
the Talking Room, and he was here last week. So he told me that.
Actually, the talking room will be up, I think, next.
No,
Oh, okay.
Oh,
Soon.
this week?
Anyway.
Anyway, it'll be up sometime
It'll be
soon.
up soon.
I think somebody's having a fight outside.
Oh, okay. I hear sounds, but as long as the door's locked, I don't worry.
I'm not sure the door's locked. I'll be right back.
Yeah, just double check that the door's locked. So John was telling me, we were driving in the car and talking about how unbelievable Pulp Fiction is. And I mean, just how gobsmackingly astonishing it is as a film.
You guys have never talked about Pulp Fiction before?
We had never talked about Pulp Fiction before. So we were just talking about being astonished by it and everything. And
I
then
think somebody
John
got
says,
tased out there.
"Really?
It seems like it's kind of intense. Think she,
I
You're
don't-
used to this.
I'm in a city. This is neighborhood.
This is your neighborhood.
So
Sorry.
he said, I mentioned Reservoir Dogs, and he says, Reservoir Dogs is City on Fire. It's a Japanese film.
Never seen
And I was like,
Really?
really? And he goes, yeah, it's a direct copy. And I said, I heard it was a copy, but that you see the heist in City on Fire, but you don't see it in Reservoir Dogs. And he said, that's pretty much the only difference except for the torture scene. And then he said that when he met Tarantino, he said, have you seen City on Fire? And Tarantino goes, oh, I copied it completely. That's what Reservoir Dogs is. And John was like, what can you do against someone who's that clear?
Yeah. But not seeing the heist is such a big part of Reservoir Dogs.
It is. But it's a very, look, I mean, there are homages, and I know that because John is so deeply inculcated with film language, the type of quoting that Tarantino does irks him. And I'm in a different camp that I think the whole is greater than the sum of its
I think
parts.
that's a generational difference.
I think
too.
it might be, and look, it's also about knowing your film history and not knowing your film history. I'm sure you can get upset about someone ripping off your favorite author blatantly.
Yeah.
But wait, I had that segue was for a point. What was it? City on the Japanese version or the foreign versions and American versions of films, and of course the greatest split between those two things is Wings of Desire and City of Angels.
City of Angels is the.
So Wings of Desire is the Wim Wenders film with Bruno Ganz,
Okay.
starring as an angel living in modern day Berlin, and he falls in love with a human. And he ends up meeting Peter Falk, who's a human, and playing himself, the actor Peter Falk, in Berlin.
Wow, it's very Malkovich.
It's an amazing movie. Wings of Desire, I cannot recommend it enough. Go out and rent it. Thank me in the comments. It is fantastic.
But City of Angels-
Bruno Ganz, the angel. So it's lots of shots of him sort of sad and sitting in high places in Berlin and
Is he
watching
like-
people go through their lives.
Is he like a Clarence in?
Yeah, he's a
in-
little like Clarence
okay.
in It's a Wonderful Life.
Yeah.
So he ends up falling in love with this female circus performer, this beautiful blonde woman. I can't remember her name.
Figures if she's German.
Right. And she's a circus performer. So they remade this film in America called City of Angels, where the angel role is played by Nicolas Cage.
Yes, okay. So we're on the same page.
Wait.
When you said City of Angels, like
So
Academy
then
Award winner for that movie.
And here's the meeting where someone was like, "Yes, we got the rights to Wings of Desire. The angel will be played by Nicolas Cage. Now, let's get to the girl. In the German film, she's a circus performer. What if in the American version she's a famous brain surgeon played by Meg Ryan?"
Wow,
I
really?
know.
Really?
Truly, I am not exaggerating at all.
When was this made? In the 90s?
early, very early 90s. It was in the whole Leaving Las Vegas and
Yeah.
that
See,
era.
when you started talking about this, I thought you were talking about Sea of Love,
Oh,
which is Al Pacino, and
John Goodman,
and it's
Ellen
actually
Barkin.
kind of a good movie.
Fantastic
Yeah.
movie.
Yeah.
Really good. A good thriller.
I remember really loving that in like Laserdisc years.
So I walked into, I just thought of that movie the other day because I had lunch with a friend of mine at the Old Clam House down on Bayshore,
Okay.
which
Okay.
is great. The Old Clam House has been on Bayshore since that was actually part of San Francisco's waterfront. We were sitting there and I walked in and there was a whole bunch of cop cars parked all around out front. And so I walked in, of course, there's a table full of cops. And just one, I see one as I walk in and like make a quick eye contact. And it's just this way. Like I work with a lot of cops on Mythbusters. And so, cops are like our core audience. They totally recognize me. And there's just this thing about that look that cops have in their eyes. And there's that bit in Sea of Love where Al Pacino as the detective is going out on dates because they think it's a serial dater, a serial killer who's going to dating sites.
Right.
Dating sites. Going through a dating service.
Yeah, exactly.
Pre-internet.
Call this number and leave a message describing yourself.
And he sits down at one table and he just starts to talk. And the woman goes, "You're a cop." And he's like, "What?" And she's like, "You got cop's eyes. I was married to a cop for 10 years. You have cop's eyes." And she gets up and she leaves. And the thing is, she's totally right. Cops have a certain way of looking.
But they look at everybody when they come in the door. If you're sitting in a restaurant
they're
and
observant.
there's a
They're
table full
trained
of
to be-
cops,
Yeah.
they see everything around them.
They totally
Well,
see
good
everything
cops.
around them.
I mean-
In fact, there's a great movie called something Blue Line or something like that. It's written by a cop. It was written for the New Yorker. He's a New York cop, and he writes about what it's like to be a cop. I wish I could remember the name of this book. But he talks about working Vice. Like you're on the top of a building watching drug deals go down and videotaping them and logging stuff and sending out patrol cars and stuff. And he says, when you work Vice, it's great for a cop because you're always going after bad guys instead of wondering if people are bad, right? That's one thing. Said two, your average pedestrian is a study in self-absorption.
That's something that was never in The Wire when they're on the rooftops and staring at people.
He
But
said,
it's so true, though.
this average pedestrian is walking down the street and is not noticing anything around them, not noticing that there's an entire ecosystem going on of awareness.
Well, that's a byproduct of like that is a byproduct of living in cities that are
Yes.
densely packed and monkeys needing to share space with other monkeys.
It's true. That's
you,
totally
you stay
true.
in your own thing. You don't make eye contact, and everybody lives in their own little bubble.
Occasionally look in the car window,
Yeah.
look at your reflection, and that's it.
Exactly. So we like forgot the segue. We were going to talk about.
It was a good
Stanley
segue,
Kubrick.
though. I
mean,
It
we had
was a
a
good
bunch
of good
segue.
ones.
You gave like 4 intros.
There were many opportunities.
It's
but
been
it's
a
all
great
right.
show, guys. We'll see you all next Thursday. I guess we're going to talk about Stanley Kubrick then.
Let's talk about Stanley.
Okay, let's
Yeah.
talk about Stanley. So, okay, I'm going to ask a question first.
Yeah.
What was the first Kubrick movie you watched, Adam?
Oh my goodness.
Do you want me
What
to ask
was
Norm
it?
first? Because I'm pretty sure he remembers.
I think it might have been. It was either I think it might have been The Shining.
Okay.
I think it was The Shining on HBO.
When you were
In the mid-'80s.
Mid-'80s. Oh, Norm,
It
do
was
you remember?
Spartacus, but not knowing it was Kubrick, and
Right.
then watching.
Spartacus was Kubrick, really?
Yeah.
There you go.
Okay, so then I'm fine with Spartacus. I was gonna say it was Dr. Strangelove, but no, it was Spartacus.
Yeah, see, I watched not knowing at all. That was, and then become more aware, and then 2001.
And then I remember a huge blizzard in New York when I was a kid. I was in high school, like 15, 16. And one of those blizzards on the East Coast that just shuts everything down.
Yeah, like you're in the house for a week and
Yeah.
you're boiling snow to make water.
it
and
wasn't
all
that bad, but
Okay.
it was like everything got quiet and I watched Clockwork Orange and I remember being like, wow. Now I love Clockwork Orange, but I always get a little suspicious of people who are like, that is my favorite movie.
Yeah, it's not something you come out and say, right?
No, lots of people say that.
Well, It's very visually distinct, and it's Malcolm McDowell.
Malcolm McDowell was at like 27
finest
and a
performance
genius.
ever. Yeah,
Well, you get more disturbed if they say he was my favorite character in a movie.
I love that scene where I mean it's a like that's a movie that we watched in a philosophy class about free will when I was a freshman in college. And it was,
yeah.
I mean, whoa,
Totally,
Yeah.
totally. And so my father was a filmmaker, among other things, and he told me that he submitted that almost every actor Kubrick cast did their finest work for Kubrick.
except for Tom Cruise and Nicole Kidman.
See, I actually would submit that Tom Cruise is perfectly cast in that movie. That actually the intersection of I'm not here to defend Eyes Wide Shut. I haven't seen it since it came out. I remember liking it back then, but it is a polarizing film. So I'm not here to defend it, but I think that the marriage between Tom and Nicole and the way in which that intersected with Eyes Wide Shut made it far more interesting. And in the same way that Cameron Crowe used the best of Tom Cruise in Jerry Maguire,
Oh, okay.
which I think is actually might be Tom's best movie ever.
I would.
Awareness, the context of who Tom Cruise is and where he is in life and a relationship that makes the movie better.
And utilizing all of that.
Oh, and it's a gorgeous movie. I mean, it is a very, very like it is one of the prettiest movies he shot as far as I'm concerned.
The Kubrick movie that keeps affecting me over the years is Dr. Strangelove.
Dr. Strangelove, I come back to.
I saw when the beautiful print came to the Castro when Kubrick released about 12 years ago, I think. He released he struck new prints from his master
right before he died. Actually,
and it was gorgeous. And I always forget when I watch Dr. Strangelove that the end makes me really sad.
It is.
None of his movies have happy endings.
No. Well, and so there's a great bit that Hodgman wrote recently that one of the things about Kubrick is that he never gives you what you want, ever.
That's absolutely true.
He gives you lots, tons of great stuff, but it's never what you want.
I think someone said like Eyes Wide Shut might be the happiest ending or the most satisfying ending of any of his movies. Like in terms of the characters coming together.
I think of 2001 as being a fundamentally happy.
Yeah,
ending.
I don't think 2001's an unhappy ending. I mean, it is good for humanity, maybe bad for Dave.
Have you seen Paths of Glory?
I've not seen Paths of Glory.
Paths of Glory is incredible.
What's Paths of Glory?
Paths of Glory is Kirk Douglas, the trenches of World War One.
It's the one he did before Spartacus.
Is it before or after?
Spartacus has a happy ending for the Romans.
Sorry, I think that it's Spartacus's first because Kubrick was a replacement director on Spartacus. I'm sure I now picture all these people at their computers nodding. Yes, you're right. Kubrick was a replacement director on Spartacus, brought in because Kirk Douglas liked The Killing, and then he did Paths of Glory with Kirk Douglas, which I think Douglas was less happy working with Kubrick on that. But Paths of Glory is all of these amazing shots of Douglas walking through endless trenches in the German countryside, and it is about the banality of war, the moral quandary about war, and it's got an amazing ending. And Douglas has never been better.
So a lot of Kubrick stuff is about war because he kind of emerged out of that post World War II.
Yeah,
that's when he grew up, and the world was in a reading a lot of Kubrick lately. So there's a lot of the world was in a place, America was in a place where it was trying to find its own identity.
Yeah.
And a lot of it was like very constructed. This is the sense of, anyone can be successful kind of thing. But there's lingering taste of World War II. And so I think a lot of that stuff does permeate through his early work.
I think that living in England as he did, there's a way in which if you spend time in Europe,
he did that later in life. After Spartacus, because he hated the Hollywood system.
It's true, but I think of him as very essentially European and having a European sensibility. Because the thing is if you spend any time in Europe talking to people about politics, the war comes up because it happened there, and it happened in people's backyards, and the cultural memory is still totally fresh. Here in this country, we have never had a war on our soil, and no one has any real idea.
Not in modern history.
Not in modern history. No one has any not in any kind of cultural memory type of way. has any idea about really what war is like on your soil.
Well, especially
Cities are
modern war
wiped
with
off the earth
tanks
or
and
flattened
bombs and the whole thing. Yeah.
Exactly,
Right.
exactly. I also got to show my kids The Shining about 3 weeks ago.
Now like The Shining is a movie that scared the hell out of me.
It
Scares
the
you
first
still
time I
today,
saw it.
yeah.
terrifying.
It is.
Yeah.
Still totally terrifying. And it
On two levels, because there's the supernatural stuff that's scary, but the Jack Nicholson going mad is, I think, your dad going crazy and trying to kill you is much scarier.
Well,
it was to
I
me
had
when I
for-
saw that movie.
I had forgotten about how. So I was thinking, okay, I'll start it up for them, and then I'll join about 30 minutes in because it starts out slow. It does not
No.
start out
No.
slow. That movie gets crazy within like 10 minutes.
And
Yeah.
I think it's subconsciously crazy. So there's that documentary out called, I think, Room 237
Right.
about the room.
It's a little
And
nutty.
Well, the movie is a weird documentary because it's not about the movie. It's about the people's obsession
Right.
with The Shining. And it goes through, I think, 5 different interpretations of people who have watched The Shining hundreds of times and have their own interpretations, from a very academic sense. So like, from a
the
filmmaking
idea that
sense.
it's an apology for the Indian apocalypse.
Right, and
yeah.
to all the way to it was Kubrick's reveal to the world that he faked the moon landing.
Right.
And there's the best thing is that the climax or the central focus of the movie is that room 237, and
Yeah.
there's a shot that goes on the key, and one guy goes, well, if you look at the key and the room, it says ROOM, and if you rearrange the letters, only thing that you could get with those letters is moon, and so that must be proof that
These people are
Kubrick
really
faked
bad at
the moon
spelling.
landing. Right. No, it's room number with NO.
Oh.
So ROOMNO. It's like if you take those letters out,
Moonor.
You could spell other words
you can also
with
spell
some of the letters.
You can spell
here.
moron with those letters too.
Is that what,
that was in a review of that movie.
that's
Yeah.
awesome.
But the subconscious stuff is he rebuilt that lodge, the Colorado Lodge,
Yeah.
based on a real lodge.
Yeah.
But if you study the shots, people walk into one room and then they on this other same shot.
Yeah,
they
the
walk out.
topography of the hotel
It
doesn't
makes
work.
no sense.
It's non-Euclidean.
Yeah, and so people exit rooms, and then later on you come in through that exit, and it's not what they went to when they left before.
Right,
and
yeah.
that's part of the great tension of the
Right.
film. Also, on the new DVD, I think I have a Blu-ray. There's all of this behind-the-scenes footage shot by Kubrick's daughter.
Yes.
That is
Really?
riveting stuff. Stanley talking to Shelley on set, Jack and Shelley shooting the scene. One of the 60 times that he went through the door with a fire axe.
Right.
Oh, there's
60 takes.
There's a scene where Jack
Wow.
Nicholson is in a bedroom and the crew is working around him, but he's just practicing going crazy.
He's moving around with the axe. You watch him getting ready for the role, and then so what they do with the footage is you start with Jack getting a microphone put on and flirting with the script lady. And she's this old Latina, and he's like, well, why don't you come back to my room later on tonight? I've got some time between 8 and 10. She's smiling and beaming, and he's like, look, I'm just saying it's a place to start talking. And you watch him flirting with everybody, and he's got so much charisma. It's astonishing. And then he walks and he walks and he walks, and they get to the room, and Shelley's there smoking, and the crew is setting up. And then they'll do this. Like you said, Jack's getting into the role, and then they'll cut to the shot from the inside of the bathroom from the film
Yeah.
of the axe coming through and Shelley unhinged. It's so awful watching what's happening to her. Just the actress having to do this
Over and over and over again.
over and
Yeah.
over again. It's terrifying.
Well, in the headspace that Jack had, Jack doesn't start off as a guy that seems particularly sane.
No.
So, you gotta wonder what his nights were like after this. Was this on location? Did they shoot this at a place?
It was at,
it a
Pinewood.
soundstage?
Pinewood
Okay.
in
Yeah.
UK.
So there's another great bit where you're walking behind the scenes and they walk through sets and you see there's a kitchen and then there's other stuff and then they go back behind all these flats and they make a right and now they're in the maze at night and it's winter. And all the snow is styrofoam and salt. And my son, thing one was like, oh, because he didn't imagine that was not
Yeah.
that was a set.
Oh, yeah.
The stuff with Kubrick's daughter is beautiful because you really get to see kind of how gracious he was on set. At one point in this footage, James Mason visits the set. And Kubrick was very closed about his sets, but Mason, having played Humbert, again, one of the best pieces of casting in the 20th century is James Mason playing Humbert in Lolita.
Yeah. That's another uncomfortable movie to watch.
Yeah, you know what? Someone was telling me to watch it again recently. I watched it right after I read Lolita when I was like 19, and I remember being like, "This isn't this book at all," and not being happy with it. So, and someone recently said, "You need to give it another chance and watch it as an adult."
If you read The Shining, it's the same thing. I mean, the book and the I can't remember
that's
specifics, but they diverge, and
they diverge almost,
and they're both
yeah.
great, but
they're both
different.
great, but
They're
the
very
movie is
different
far better than the book.
I can't. It's been so long since I've read the book that I can't.
I
can't say.
will point out that the two movies that I have read, that the two movies that Stephen King can't, and let me just give. I love Stephen King.
Mm-hmm.
Stephen King, if you ever hear this, I love you. I grew up reading everything. But I will say that if I've heard that he holds the opinion that Carrie and The Shining are the two worst adaptations of his books, and I think he's 100% off, 180 degrees off the mark.
Worse as adaptations, they are not accurate
You're right; they are not accurate adaptations. I submit they're both better than the book.
He said something in an EW article about Under the Dome recently that was very true, and that is, if you're pissed off about the TV show not being like the book, then the book's still on the shelf. It exists as it is and as it always has been.
This is true.
So you can just go read the book if that's what you want, but the TV show's there for everybody else if they want it to.
I've never seen Barry Lyndon.
Oh, I have that on DVD. I can
Barry
bring it in for
Lyndon
you.
is also incredible. And again, my dad pointed out, Ryan O'Neal was never and will never be. He was born to play Barry Lyndon.
Yeah.
And it's a very sad.
It's a technical achievement.
Oh,
first of
yeah.
all.
No, the lens, you're talking about the famous NASA
the 0.7
lenses.
aperture lens.
Hold on.
You know about this?
No, I don't know about this. Explain.
So Kubrick found out that NASA had built these very, very high-speed lenses that were 0.7.
The
That's very
widest ever
fast.
made.
Yeah.
They made 7 of them. I think.
Right. And he managed to get 2 of them.
Yes.
And he bought this old Mitchell from Fox, from 20th Century
The
Fox.
camera that
Yeah, this old Mitchell 35 millimeter camera that specifically had the type of gate. So for anyone that doesn't know, a film runs by a gate, and the gate exposes each piece of film as it's going.
So the gate acts like
shutter.
a shutter in a
Yeah,
camera?
and
Okay.
the lens actually the camera had to be rebuilt to accommodate the lens, and Kubrick had one crazy machinist who could do it and did it and built this camera that no one had ever built before. That could
There's
What
a
did
company
NASA use the
now-
lens for? Sorry.
he used it to film huge portions of Barry Lyndon by candlelight.
that's what Kubrick did.
Oh,
NASA used
really?
it- yeah.
Uh-huh.
So all the candlelight scenes, no other lighting.
Wow,
except
really? I had no
for-
idea.
The depth of
candle.
field in those shots was maybe
it's
an
like this,
inch,
yeah.
and the actors had to learn to move laterally to the camera lens rather than
For
in and out.
80 takes, man.
Yeah.
But that's why that movie also is so. From the pictures I've seen, it's all so flat because it's supposed to be like those paintings.
It does feel
feel-
quite flat. The two movies from that time, from like the Regency era, that I think that make me feel the most like it probably felt, are that movie, Barry Lyndon, and Peter Greenaway's The Draftsman's Contract, which is wonderful and amazing, but also like gives you an idea about how much those people must have stunk in those clothes that they never bathed in and barely
I
washed.
can only imagine.
I mean, everyone's just filthy around the edges in The Draftsman's Contract.
Oh, yeah.
Adam, so you had a chance to go down to LA and see the Kubrick exhibit.
Yes. So that was at LACMA. It's a traveling exhibit. It's
Yes.
been traveling around the world. It's going somewhere in over the Atlantic Ocean now, but it's coming back to Toronto, if I remember correctly, later on in the year or early next year.
I think it was an exhibit that popped up in 2004 in
Right.
Germany.
Yes.
And it kind of started right after he died. I think there was a documentary that his brother-in-law did.
Oh, really?
About Kubrick. Came out in around 2001. Jen Harlan. But then they spent 8 months going through all his archives and pulling stuff out. I think there's a really great story about the archivist who was in charge of curating the things because he had
His stuff.
tons and tons
yeah.
of material. But Kubrick's wife one day went up to him and handed him the Star Child like a child, and he cradled it and then carefully wrapped it and packaged it for shipment.
So
So
that Star Child is the one from 2001, because someone was telling me
Wow.
that the one in the exhibit was from 2010, but Landis maintained no, it's absolutely the original one. That exhibit, I spent 3.5 hours in it actually, and I went back a second time to spend another couple of hours. It's an incredible exhibit.
Yeah.
If you get a chance to go see it, I personally think I'll fly to Toronto to go see it. When it
And you
comes
know why
back
it's
here.
worth
Yeah.
doing that? If you see photos of it being exhibited in Frankfurt, Berlin, and in Sydney, the museum curators, they all arrange it and present the material in very, very different ways, in very unique ways.
And in fact, in Los Angeles, I met, I wish I could remember her name, but we could call it up on the website, is a female production designer in LA, a movie production designer who designed the layout of the Kubrick exhibit at LACMA.
Oh, really?
And I said to her, God, I'm so glad to meet you. I wanted to tell you how much I loved moving through this exhibit, because you can move through it linearly, but you can also, it doubles back on itself. So you can constantly kind of circle back and go back and see things you hadn't seen. And it engenders a conversation with a material that's on your own terms.
It's like an IKEA.
Yes,
Yeah, no,
yes,
it absolutely is.
Exactly.
It's linear, but then there are the little passageways.
Cut-throughs.
So
Okay.
I'm very interested to see what they'll do at other places to lay it out, because each one engenders a different way of looking at the material.
So what kind of stuff, like I didn't get to go, unfortunately, but what kind of stuff what were you able to see there?
So they had things like, obviously they had original movie posters, they had costumes and props from the films, but they also had things like Kubrick's handwriting on script pages and re-edits and re-edits and re-edits, and all of this laid out in front of you.
Oh, wow.
So you could read entire scenes from The Shining, and he would like reword things and
you'd see his
strikeouts
notes. I think Jack should be this here. And these were things that ended up in the movie. So you're looking at the moment of creation of, he was rewriting all of his movies all the time on the fly. He was
Wow.
very famous for new pages constantly.
And then his unmade work, Napoleon.
Well, Napoleon is the kind of incredible piece, because in '68 he wanted to make this sweeping epic about Napoleon's life. He wanted to shoot it in many of the original locations of Napoleon's famous battles, to talk about the topography of Napoleon's genius as a general. And one of the things in the exhibit that blew me away is he had a local. Kubrick consulted extensively with Napoleon historians, and at this college in England, these students spent weeks assembling a card catalog for Kubrick that cross-referenced every recorded day of Napoleon's life.
So it was a calendar, and everyone you could pick a day, and they would have cards and everyone who would be in the movie, what their mood and attitude was on that day and what they were wearing, linear throughout the entire span of
Every biography, every history of Napoleon is cross-referenced in this card catalog to chronicle every possible day of Napoleon's life.
Card catalogs are awesome.
How many men you lost this day? The march into Russia. How much food your army ate? How many horses you went through? How much munitions?
When you got a
all
new
of
pair
this.
of boots.
It's all, and the card catalog is in the exhibit.
Talk about inventory,
Oh.
right?
Well, and he had people doing that constantly. Apparently, for The Shining, he had his team annotate and cross-reference every ghost story. I mean, every ghost story. Like every ghost story they could find was read and synapsized and cross-referenced to take a look at. Because Kubrick thought of, the form. I love this. Is a story about him calling up Stephen King and saying, "Don't you think that every ghost story is essentially optimistic because it posits that there's life after death?"
Which is true.
That's an amazing way to look at it. It gives you a tremendous license.
It's a different perspective.
Yeah.
So he's one of the he's a director who's famously known for testing out different genres and then moving on. Danny Boyle does kind of the same thing. It seems like.
Yes. Sorry. Go ahead.
No, go ahead. I was just going to say. Do you feel like there's something do you wish that there's something he had gone back and revisited? Do you wish that he had gone? I know he did 2010.
No, he didn't.
No, he didn't.
No, he had
no
nothing to do with
interest.
2010.
Yeah, that's right.
I wish, because science fiction is where I kind of associate with it. I wish his AI.
I worked on AI.
Yeah.
I had first heard about AI in the mid 90s. I heard rumors about AI. Early 90s, I heard rumors about AI.
Kubrick's science fiction masterpiece.
So when in 2000, when I actually got to work on it at Industrial Light and Magic, I could not have been more psyched. I would love to have seen Kubrick's original vision for AI.
And Spielberg maintains that it is Kubrick's vision.
I accept that, and I revere Spielberg as a director, but I think there are fundamental differences. And I know that Kubrick revered Spielberg as a director and a friend. I think there are fundamental differences in the way the two filmmakers work
Well, any two people look
Yeah.
at the world in a different way.
Absolutely. And I would have loved to have seen. I feel like there are punches that AI pulls that Kubrick would not have pulled.
I
I think it would have been a more challenging and difficult film from Kubrick.
we've talked about this before, and that is a film that is on my list of things to go back and rewatch because I
Yeah,
haven't seen it
mine
in about
too.
10 years, and I remember liking it a lot more than everybody else liked it at the time, despite some pretty serious flaws and some
Yeah.
just generally weird stuff. But yeah, I want to go back and revisit that.
Maybe we
I'll
should
do
sit
that
down and watch it and comment.
That's not a bad.
look,
Maybe
I-
that's the one that we do that on.
Because
Yeah.
I worked for a
Yeah.
year on it. I did my team did all the broken buildings in New York.
We have the technology. Let's just
We have the technology.
Let's
I've got
let's lock it
pieces
down.
of AI sets.
Yeah.
over,
If we
over
promise
behind
the audience, then we can't.
I
not to.
promise.
Do we
I
have
think
a
should totally? do
Yeah.
that.
Okay.
We
I have
will,
a-
we will do
Everybody
a,
can come over to somebody's
we will
house and
do
we'll
a
sit down and watch
commentary.
TV.
I've
Yeah,
got
we'll do it
a
at
flat
the
screen
office.
here. We can do it here.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Done.
Wait, I wanted to go back to so in addition to these script pages and these card catalogs and the depth of his research, there's also the fact that, and John Landis was saying this when he talked about having met and talked to Kubrick, he was nearly obsessive about saving money. And one of the reasons, from what I've been reading, is because he wanted the freedom to shoot 100 takes or to shoot for 200 days if he needed to. So he was a genius at saving money and putting it into continuing to shoot, or using the insurance policy for the film to keep adding more days to the shooting schedule. And he famously owned a lot of his own camera equipment. So he owned that Mitchell that they shot Barry Lyndon on. In the exhibit are his whole collection of these beautiful Schneider lenses and Arriflex mini 35 millimeter cameras and all of the pieces that he utilized because he was a real techno geek at the same time as being this incredible alternative.
Fascinated by technology.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And, famously hiring Garrett Brown to use the Steadicam for
for The
all
Shining.
those amazing shots in The Shining.
So what was his where was his youth? He grew up in New York, right?
He started out as a
Photographer
for
for
Look magazine.
at 17 years
really?
old.
Yeah.
And were his parents like artisans or craftsmen or anything like that we
That I
know?
don't know. He's
I
from
don't think
Brooklyn.
so. Yeah. The thing was,
So it could have been anything.
he did street photography. When
And his
street
photography, if you go look at his photography, he was amazing.
Yes, and it's one of the things that you can really appreciate. So there's a French photographer he really admired. I forgot, Godard Bresson or something.
Carter Bresson.
Carter
Yeah.
Bresson, Carter Bresson. And Bresson does street photography, but waits for the moment.
Yeah.
So he'll put his camera there, and he has. I mean, you can get composition, you can get lighting right, but he finds the perfect moment by waiting for it. Apparently, Kubrick staged his moments.
Yeah.
So there's a great shot that was at the exhibit of his first photo he sold was after FDR died, the day after FDR died, and it's a photo of a newsstand, and you have all these newspapers, FDR dead, and you have this newsstand owner looking really somber and staring off in the distance, kind of like that famous what's her name photo, but you know what I mean. It looks very somber, captures the moment,
Yeah.
completely staged. He went up to the newsstand owner, look sad in that
Yeah.
way, and then took
Wow.
the photo.
No, up and to the
so
left.
then he was always interested in filmmaking, and he raised a little bit of money, which he said wasn't hard to do in the 40s when he made Killer's Kiss,
Yeah,
Okay.
and then
that
he
was
made The Killer.
no, the Killer's Kiss was.
Is it like a pulpy detective story? It sounds
I
like.
believe so.
Right.
I've never seen Killer's Kiss or The Killing. Those
I
are
don't-
two Kubrick films.
So he did documentaries before that about
Oh, did he?
boxing. He did two short documentaries
right.
about
I
boxing.
totally forgot about that.
And the photos from those, he did a photo shoot for Look about boxing, and then he said, "Okay, I'm done with photography. I'm interested in cinematography." And he shot and directed and edited his film about boxing. Also staged some of those shots.
Wow.
Hmm.
So go. I want to see The Killing. I know it's Sterling Hayden, and it's apparently fantastic. It's the one. It's that and The Killer's Kiss are the two Kubricks I have not seen.
Okay.
Go see Barry Lyndon,
Yeah.
and we should sit and watch AI.
So the DVD of Barry Lyndon, the one that I have is a bad print. I'm not going to give that to you. I think we should find out. It's
It's on Blu-ray.
okay.
It's
It is
on
on
Blu-ray
Blu-ray.
and
Okay.
There's a whole Blu-ray set. Of all
Yeah.
of them.
I'd like to watch that too because honestly, I remember the transfer I saw feeling quite muted.
The one that I have that, and I bought that in that first Kubrick box set, the white one with
Yeah,
2001 and all the other, and that set was like half good transfers and half really garbage transfers. And Barry Lyndon got and I think Full Metal Jacket also, which was a Full Metal Jacket was a weird framing, as I remember. It's like a full frame,
There's
kind of
an
tall.
endless amount of internet debate about Stanley's preferred aspect ratio for all of his movies.
Because he changed it a lot, right?
He changed it a lot, and he would make compromises knowing that some theaters he was going to show his movies in didn't have the ability to project them in certain aspect ratios. So there's disputes about what aspect ratio various films were. It's
Whether films were intended to be matted or not.
If
and
you want to
yeah.
go into a world of debate, that is Mac versus PC is the Stanley Kubrick aspect ratio debate.
Very good. And I guess on that note, we'll wrap up today. As always, thank you guys for listening. If you like us or don't like us, leave a review on iTunes, post a comment below, give us feedback on YouTube, the whole 9 yards. We love getting
Absolutely.
feedback. It's always good.
And if there's something about Kubrick we centrally missed, let us know, because we obviously we have some plans to watch some Kubrick soon.
Yeah. Well, we'll see you guys next time.
All right, bye.
Bye.